What up, everybody, and welcome back to Baz on Blades. My name is Baz, and I talk about blades. Today's blade, we're going to talk about the Kershaw Emerson CQC-6K. This is a Kershaw produced, an import model from Kershaw in their Kershaw Emerson collaboration line. I think that from my research online and from the people that I've talked to, the CQC-6K and its twin brother, the CQC-7K, that has a Tanto style blade, I think they are probably the most popular two models out of this line. And I tell you what, I see why, guys. These Kershaw Emerson models are budget models. This allows somebody that has always admired Ernest Emerson and Emerson's design language, but never could foot the approximately $200 price point for their knives. This allows those people to get into and to own classic Emerson designed knives. And I've got to tell you, no matter what the price is on this knife, it screams Ernest Emerson. And I'm going to tell you, I have owned and handled many, many, many Emerson knives. I've owned Emerson Zero Tolerance collaborations. And now I own this knife, and this knife is fully 110% Emerson design. It's like holding an Emerson in your hand. All right. Now, this is from a budget line, and I'm going to tell you right now, guys, I got this knife for $20.75 shipped. $20.75, less than $21 shipped, guys. That is a pretty damn decent value right there. Now, I don't do this, but I'm going to do it this time, and I'm going to give a purchasing recommendation on this. I bought this from an eBay dealer that I have frequented more than once. They have about 40,000 transactions with 100% positive feedback. The name of this eBay seller is Fantasy Knives Texas. One word, Fantasy Knives Texas. And like I say, I've ordered from them multiple times and been very, very happy. Super quick shipping. The product is always spot on. No issues with any funny business and nothing fake from them. Nothing like that. As far as I'm concerned, they are just as reputable as someplace like Blade HQ or Knife Center or Smoky Mountain Knife Works or any of these guys. And for $20.75, this is a hellacious deal. Now, I will say this right now. Their in-stock availability is limited to the clam pack packaging of this model. Now, some people like boxes. Some people don't care. I could care less myself. This is packaging the same as a box to me. If I wanted to resell this, I've got this branded packaging. And you know what? It's pretty decent. It's sort of a waxy, semi-satiny looking heavy cardstock. It's not cheap at all, guys, and it doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't make the knife feel any cheaper. Now, I want you to notice right here, there's a little Ziploc baggie in there. That is extra small screws for changing the pocket clip over on this knife. And there is two different lengths of screws in there, and I'm assuming that is because the shorter screws will be used for right-hand carry, screwing right into the lock side. The longer screws will be used for left-hand carry, where you have to go through the G10 scale to get to the steel liner. All right, guys. Let's set this down. We're going to go over some specs, knock the numbers out first. What we're looking at here is a blade length of 3 1/4 inches, or right at 8.5 centimeters. The blade stock thickness is, I got 106 thousandths of an inch. 106 thousandths. That doesn't seem right, guys. Let's go ahead and do this right here. That seems a little thin to me. And I've got 2.71 millimeters, so not quite 3 millimeters. Let's go ahead and whip out the old calipers here. This is the calipers of doom from Harbor Freight, because just like most Harbor Freight stuff, they are doomed to fail sooner or later. Yeah, 106 thousandths. All right, guys. So blade stock thickness of 106 thousandths. You've got a blade width from the spine to the edge of right at 1 inch or 25.5 millimeters. The handle length, 4.5 inches or 11.5 centimeters. Handle thickness is a pretty thin 454 thousandths of an inch or 11.5 millimeters. The handle width at the widest point, which is up here at the pivot, I believe, was 1.25 inches or 31.85 millimeters. The closed width, which I did measure from the wave feature to the back of the handle here, is 1.4 inches or 35.6 millimeters. Your overall length is 7.75 of an inch or 20 centimeters. Your stop pin thickness, 137 thousandths of an inch or 3.5 millimeters. Behind the edge blade thickness, I hit it in 3 different spots, got an average of 25 thousandths of an inch. Your handle to blade ratio, 0.72, which is above 0.70, which is in the good realm. Your weight, 5.11 ounces or 145 grams. All right, let's get into materials. Your blade is in HCR14 MOV. HCR14 MOV is a Chinese stainless steel. It is considered a budget stainless steel. You would compare it most directly to AUS 8 or 440, sort of in between 440B, 440C. Your carbon content is going to be 0.75 to 0.8. Chromium, 13.5 to 14. It is a vanadium alloyed steel with 0.1 to 0.15% vanadium, and vanadium is a carbide adder. Typically, vanadium alloyed steels cut a little more toothy and aggressively. You get decent, or you get good corrosion resistance with HCR14. Pretty decent edge retention and pretty decent toughness. It is overall a pretty good budget steel, and I think very much acceptable at the $20.75 price point. It is very easy to sharpen. I have sharpened HCR14 from Kershaw on my KME to where I can peel hair, cut hair lengthwise. And I've got a photo of a Kershaw spline, I think, that I sharpened up on my Instagram page, which is Baz on Blades, of course, where it shows how I peeled hair with that steel. It can get very, very, very sharp. It's not going to hold an edge forever, but, you know, sharpening knives is all part of being in the knife game. So, materials on the handle. The show side is a G10 slab. It does have a pattern on it, a textured pattern. It is about as aggressive as what you would feel on a Spyderco Paramilitary 2. It is not as aggressive as the brick pattern that you would see on like Cold Steel Recon series. It offers plenty of traction. You can see there, it's plenty of traction, and you can see skin being rubbed off in it. But it is comfortable, guys. There's no issues there. That is over a stainless liner. It's a pretty substantial liner. You have a Zytail, what appears to be Zytail in texture and feel, back spacer, and then the back side, the frame lock side, is in stainless steel. It does have a bead blast finish. All the small hardware is stainless steel, and keeping in line with the Ernest Emerson and Emerson knives designs, you are in standard hardware, which is flathead screw for the pivot and then Phillips screws for all the rest of these small screws. All right, and that's just stays in line with what Emerson uses on their knives. Take it or leave it. I don't feel one way or another, you know, for it or against it. Instead of using Torx screws, I do think that it does add to the Emerson feel of it. Now, you know, the design of this, like I say, is 110% Emerson. There is nothing in this really that screams Kershaw design to me. It is just a Kershaw rendered, budget oriented Emerson is basically what it is, guys. You know, and that's it covers everything in this. Not only is the handle profile Emerson, the blade profile very utilitarian, classic blade profile, much like Ernest Emerson prefers in his designs. You know, you've got the thumb disc opening system, which is Emerson all the way. You've got Emerson's patented wave opening feature, which we're all familiar with. When this knife is in your pocket and you draw it out, this hook catches on the outside corner of your pocket and allows you to open the knife on the draw. So when it fully clears a pocket, it is open. As I've always said, a wave featured knife is the fastest opening knife that there is. No automatic, no assisted opener, no flipper can be opened as fast as a wave featured knife if that is important to you. On the flip side, they're not real good around the sheeple because sheeple are scared of knives, you know, because knives run around by themselves just stabbing people all the time apparently. So you got to be careful waving a knife out of your pocket around the sheeple. You don't want to scare those sheeple. Like I always say, they scatter around. The next thing you know, they're just wandering here and there. They're on their cell phone, they're tweeting and they're crying, and there's nothing sadder than a sad sheeple. Okay, not really, because I laugh at them myself. All right, guys. So, you know, we're just Emerson on this design, including the pocket clip, which is basically an Emerson pocket clip. I've even seen where some people have said, hey, they sourced these pocket clips from Emerson. I don't have an Emerson in my collection any longer, so I can't A-B the pocket clips. It looks like an Emerson pocket clip. It has the Emerson skull logo on it. You know, so it could very well be. That doesn't really matter to me. But, you know, guys, it's, you know, when you spend this $20.75 or $25 or $30 or whatever, wherever you get this knife, you end up with something that just is Emerson. You know, I mean, yes, it's made by Kershaw, and it's made in China, but when you get it in your hand, you just think Emerson, especially those that are already familiar with Ernie's designs and his design language. All right, now fit and finish on this. We'll go back to the blade. You know, I've seen a lot of reviews on the blade finish on these knives. It is a pretty attractive blade finish. It is slightly coarser in its refinement level than you will see on higher end knives. You know, the stonewash, let's see if I can get close enough here and catch this just right. The stonewash, you can still see, I'm sorry guys, this glare is killing my camera. The stonewash is fairly heavy, and I can't catch it on the camera here, but to the naked eye, you can still see the perpendicular grind lines from the primary grind through the stonewash. And that's what I mean by not being quite as refined. I'm trying to catch that, guys, and it's just confusing the crap out of my camera. Anyway, you just have to take my word for it. And then the flats are done in sort of a faux hand-rubbed. A lot of people call this satin, but it is very, to me, it's pretty coarse. I mean, you can see right here, guys, that is pretty coarse. It is not like a hand-rubbed satin. It is a machine finish, an as-ground finish, and I would have to hit it on some belts to compare, but I'm saying the 250 to 400 grit range, whereas to hand finish something, I would go all the way up to 1500 to 2000 grit for a hand rub. It is attractive, don't get me wrong. I've got no issue with the way it looks, no issue with the quality of the finish as far as this price point goes. This blade was stone washed overall, so your grinds, your primary grind, your swedge grind, your spine, you can see inside of the jimping here. If I close it up, you can see on the end of the blade here, the tang end, it is stone washed. So what they've done, they've stone washed these blades, and then they've come back and machine finished the flat. So every bit of the blade is stone washed except for that flat there. You can see the Emerson arrowhead logo for Emerson Designs, and then you got the Emerson skull on the front. On the back, you've got Kershaw model number, and of course Kai, which Kershaw is a part of Kai and manufactured in China. There is no steel top on this. You just got to refer to what the manufacturer says. So the fit and finish on the blade is fine. The edge grind, we'll take a look at the edge grind here. The edge grind is not the most refined grind that I've ever seen. It is pretty even. It does fade down here. Dadgummit, camera. It does fade and thin out here at the sharpening choil, but the choil is out past the plunge here. The plunge is pretty abrupt. It's not a big, huge flared plunge. So I think resharpening should be pretty easy. Now I know on my KME what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove the thumb disc in order to sharpen that, because once I come at it from an angle, from the center point of the knife, you know, you're going to angle to this way, you're going to angle to this way to sharpen in a clamp system. I think I might brush up against that and just mess that finish up, so I'll probably take that off. So those of you guys that have KMEs or Lanskys or whatever, just be aware of that. The jimping is moderately useful. It is pretty rounded. It's a good example of manufactured jimping that is cut before the blade is stone washed, so the edges are pretty relaxed on it. It is pretty deep. I think that it would work very well with gloves, but on just raw skin, you tend to roll on it just a little bit. Thankfully, because of the wave feature, you've got the ramp feature here. It is very stable in the hand because of that. The jimping does come back on both sides of the handle, and it is evenly cut on the handle itself as far as the show side between the scale and the liner, and then lining up with the frame side. All right, going into the handle, the G10, well radiused all around the edge, no hot spots on it, no unevenness. There's no gapping between the scale and the liner. Everything is straight, everything is smooth. There's very minimal overhang of the liner and scale. There's a slight nail catch, but it is very much acceptable at this price point. It's pretty tight craftsmanship for a $20 knife, especially when you start throwing the cost of having that Emerson name on it. The small hardware is all finished in black. The finish on it is even. The hardware, I have not taken this knife apart. I haven't needed to, but I did go and make sure everything was snugged up from the factory, which it was. No issues there. The back side, this stainless frame lock side does have a sort of a soft, smooth bead blast finish. With some sateen sort of look to it, so it's not dull at all, and it should resist rust pretty well. And the stainless that's typically used for a frame lock side is typically fairly low carbon and high chromium content anyway, since it doesn't have to be hardened like the blade still does to hold an edge. Then the pocket clip, like I say, is a classic sort of Emerson design. It gives you plenty of relief from the body for thicker pocket materials. The clamp surface is good enough to clamp. The tip up here is good. It flares a little bit up. They did sort of try to bend it to where it's flat again, parallel to the scale, but it does flare up a little bit. In the hand, I can feel it, but it's not so high that it's causing a lot of discomfort. The pocket clip works very well. It goes in and out of the pocket well. No issues there, guys. All right, so fit and finish is good on this knife. Let's talk about the action. Let's see if we can see these. Okay, right there. It is on white bushings. They are nylon bushings, I'm assuming, since they're white. They are very substantial and they're very cleanly cut. You can see the edge of them. The edge of the cut where they're stamped out of the sheet material is burnished and shiny. Very cleanly cut, very thick. They look like a phosphor bronze bushing, but just in white nylon. It does give it a fairly smooth feel. You can see that there's no issue at all with just flicking that knife out. Of course, there's no issue at all with opening it with the wave feature. It does feel very smooth. It is very smooth, guys. I'll give it that. It's just not smooth in a sort of way when you close it that you're going to shake it down. It's, you know, it's just not going to happen. I mean, you can if you, who's going to stand there and shake their knife 50 times to close it? But to do it manually, it does feel very smooth, guys. It has a quality feel and is very acceptable at this price point. The lockup on mine, you can see it is pretty much 100% lockup. That's the way it started out. It is very solid. There is absolutely no play of any type in any direction, and I am very much torquing on that, guys. You can see after that, it still hasn't moved. And even if the lockup did increase and the lock bar came all the way over, the lock bar is pretty much the thickness of the blade stock. So even if it did come over to where it fully rested against this show side liner here, you still would not have any issues with lockup. There's no lock stick in it. It's steel on steel. The centering on mine, pretty decent. If you do back off the pivot pressure, the centering goes out on it. But again, we're in a $20 knife, guys. This is not a $200 knife. And it's very acceptable where it is. So, you know, fit and finish, fantastic. Now, what I'd like to do now is do some comparisons to some other classic EDC knives, because I consider this at 3 1/4 inches, 7 3/4 inches overall to be an EDC size folder. And we're going to do this real quick. We're going to bring out the standard bearer. There you go, Paramilitary 2. Look at that, guys. The Paramilitary 2 is about an 1/8 of an inch bigger in each direction from the center of the pivot. The next thing, another that I consider to be a classic, one of the best EDC knives along with the Paramilitary 2, is the Cold Steel American Lawman. Right there, guys. American Lawman, CQC-6K, and Paramilitary 2. I think you can start to see, as we've gone through this video and you've seen, you get the classic Emerson design language. You get really good build, decent materials, good fit and finish. The size is fantastic for EDC. Yes, it's a little heavier than these two other knives because it is a stainless frame lock, but at 5.1 ounces, I don't think it's ridiculous. It just feels, it does feel, you're going to pick it up and you're going to go, okay, that's a little heavier, but I don't think that you're going to pick it up and go, my God, that weighs a ton. You're just going to pick it up and go, yeah, it's a stainless frame lock. That's pretty decent. You know, and the ergos are fantastic on it. I mean, in my medium-sized hands, I've got plenty of room to purchase. Now, I'm not going to be doing any striking with the butt end here, but it is a more compact EDC-sized knife. So, overall, guys, I like it. You know what? I bought this knife because I got it at such a good deal. I bought this knife intending to review it and then sell it or gift it to somebody. And you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep it. You know, I have gotten a lot of more budget-oriented knives this past year, and I think that this knife, it equals and surpasses some of the budget offerings out there. It gives you that Emerson design language, fantastic ergos, you know, a classic, you know, I don't know if they're calling this a drop point or a clip point. It's just right on the borderline of each. It's a flat facet sort of drop, so you could call it a clip, but you get decent, you know, decent point on it here. You can see it. It catches readily. So a usable point, you know, a hollow grind, so a fairly thin behind the edge thickness on it at 25 thousandths. Pretty good fit and finish. Handle ergos, very ergonomic, usable in a reverse grip, in a forward grip. You know, draw cutting, this really isn't the knife that I would use for that. But, I mean, in a pinch, you could use it for that. I don't think there'd be any issue at all, guys. All right, so overall, I like it. I'm going to say at $20.75, up to $25, I'm going to say, yeah, get it. It's a great little knife. It's a great design. It gives you that Emerson design at a more budget price point. So I'm going to recommend the Kershaw Emerson CQC-6K. I think it is a pretty doggone good offering. All right, guys. Same as always, I thank you for taking the time to watch one of my videos. God bless all of you, and we will talk to you again.